Dice. My name is Matt, and today we're going to be talking about why you should play D&D or D&D style games with your kids. I'm wearing the Wind Behind Dark Shrine shirt today because I'm a dirty cheater at StarCraft. So this is a video I've been wanting to make since I started this channel. It's something that I think is really important. It's something that I have a lot of personal experience with, having started playing tabletop games when I was quite young. And it's something that I can speak to. When I started playing D&D, it wasn't with a group of friends. It wasn't, in college. It wasn't in high school. It was when I was a kid with my family. And so I think I have a fairly unique perspective when it comes to this, and I think this is more common today than it has been, because a lot of the people that grew up playing D&D are adults now. They have kids of their own and they're introducing them to the hobby. So, there's a lot of sort of some stereotypes that come along with D&D. The whole idea, I've talked about this a little bit in past videos, but the whole idea that, D&D, kids who play D&D have a hard time separating fantasy from reality. They can become unstable. They will start worshiping Satan, start, sacrificing infants to the dark gods, and, all this kind of stupid stuff that has no real weight. So I'm going to lay it out here. Reasons I think that you should introduce your kids to D&D and play D&D with them. And I'll say D&D, throughout this video, but really any sort of tabletop game, whether it be medieval fantasy like D&D and Pathfinder and all of those, or something else entirely. So there are a lot of benefits for kids who play D&D and D&D style games. And I'm going to break them down into social benefits and personal benefits. And then there's going to be some benefits that don't really fit into either. But let's talk about the social benefits really quick. So if you introduce your kids to D&D and you have them play D&D with you, whether you're GMing or you're playing with them, they're going to acquire some skills. They're going to develop some skills that would normally not be developing in them just naturally. These are things like teamwork. Working together to solve problems, realizing that they are not on their own, they are part of a team. They need to be comfortable with relying on others and being relied on. This is a life skill that you have to develop, and by playing D&D, you are introducing this to them very early on in a very fun way. Kids who play D&D are able to recognize that they are not the only ones at the table. They learn things like sharing, kindness, extending courtesy to others. When you play at the table, you quickly realize, that there are, 3, 4 other people sitting around here, and they all are here for the same reason. They all want to have fun. And this is a very good way to teach kids the concept of sharing and giving and taking. They will also learn problem solving. And not just problem solving, but creative problem solving. Being able to think outside the box and work as a group to do that. That sort of ties in with the whole teamwork thing, but that is any sort of job that you're going to have, you're going to be working with others to solve problems. So D&D teaches that very early on. That is a huge part of D&D. The other thing they're going to learn is how to interact with strangers and friends. In a very tangible way. In playing a character and speaking with NPCs and other people in the party, they are learning how to talk to people. They're learning how to be social, how to interact, how to present ideas and topics. They're learning how to articulate their thoughts and their feelings, whether it be theirs or their characters. Having kids articulate what they're feeling, what they're thinking, that is so important, and D&D encourages that so much. So those are sort of the social aspects. It comes down to teamwork, learning to share, learning to give and take, learning to rely on others and be relied on, articulating your thoughts, speaking with others, social interaction, face to face, learning how to look people in the eye and speak to them as equals, respect. those sorts of things. Those things just sort of happen naturally if you're playing D&D at the table with others. Let's talk about the personal benefits. Personal. Well, I mean, there's the real tangible things like math skills. Just rolling the dice and adding up the different modifiers. You have to think quickly, and things like that will teach you, basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division quite quickly. And for kids, I mean, that's huge. I was fairly good at simple math in school, and of course, once you get to calculus and stuff like that, it sort of falls apart. But basic math in school, because of all those dice rolls that I was making, and because of all the gaming that I was doing, I could very easily do simple addition and subtraction, multiplication and division in my head, and I still can to this day. So, other personal things that D&D harbors is self-confidence. This is so huge. This is probably the most important thing, and definitely the most important thing for me. As a player, yes, but if you ever have a kid that wants to run an adventure, self-confidence is huge. They learn how to present themselves in a confident way. They learn how to speak and learn how to, articulate their thoughts, and their confidence will grow. And I know this for a fact because it has happened for me. I know a lot of my confidence that I have as an adult stems from the fact that I have been looking people in the eye, speaking to people, and being a leader in a group of friends. And D&D is almost solely responsible for that confidence that I have, and the feeling that I have of being comfortable being a leader, of stepping up and doing things, comes almost exclusively from DMing. What else is this going to give you personally? It's going to give you a chance to stretch your imagination. It's giving you a chance to be creative. So important for kids to be imaginative, to be creative, to use their brains, to not just ingest but also produce. And I think that is, we live in a culture of absorbers, of people who look and see but don't necessarily contribute. And I feel like D&D is a great opportunity to contribute to something creatively without a lot of pressure and without a lot of stress or time commitment. You're able to very quickly be imaginative and contribute to something creative at the table. D&D also teaches strategy, tactics. Now, this may not come into play in real life, but I know for a fact that I'm fairly proficient at real-time strategy games and other role-playing games because of D&D. And I don't know if that translates very well to real life necessarily, but it does sort of tie in with the creative thinking, problem-solving, things like that. I can think tactically. And I know, positions, movement, things like that, because of D&D and using miniatures and combat and things like that. Now, other things that don't really tie into these two aspects, they're not necessarily social or personal. D&D is a great stress reliever. People don't really think about this, but kids can get very stressed. And if you think back to when you were a kid, think about the things that made you upset. They seem pretty silly, but at the time, they were very real. And kids can put a lot of pressure on themselves in school, sports, extracurricular activities. D&D is an awesome stress reliever. I know this doesn't just apply to kids, but for me as well as an adult, D&D is probably the biggest stress reliever I have. Knowing that I get to game once or twice a week helps me get through the week, man, and it is a huge contributor to me regenerating, and just recharging my batteries at the end of the week. So it's a great stress reliever. And then, last but certainly not least, quality time. Quality face-to-face time with your kids, with your family. Some of my fondest memories as a kid are sitting around the table playing D&D and games like D&D with my dad, with my mom, with my sister, later, with my friends, with my cousins. It is fantastic, especially if you're a busy family. If you work a lot and you don't get as much time as you'd like with your kids, there's nothing more rewarding than sitting down and looking at your kid, and just being face to face with your kid and running an adventure and having fun with them. Everyone always says, you should try to have at least one meal a day with the whole family. I say, you should try to game at least once a week with the whole family. I think that's just as rewarding, if not more rewarding. So, at the very least, it's quality time with your kids, and it's teaching them good habits. I think there are very few downsides to D&D. I think certainly, yes, there are certain personalities that don't handle D&D well, but I would say for the most part, only good can come from playing D&D with your kids, and you're going to instill in them a love of fantasy, imagination, and creativity that is going to stay with them for the rest of their lives. Maybe they won't game for the rest of their lives, but I guarantee you that the echoes will ring long into their adult life and give them a lot of tools that they can use in their life to excel and be a better person. I know I am a better person because of D&D, and I can say that without any sort of irony to it. I know for a fact that a lot of the qualities that make me me come from gaming, and I've developed a lot of those qualities in gaming. So maybe you haven't thought about this yet. Maybe you're hesitant to get your kids into gaming because, well, it's violent or it's scary or they can't separate fiction from reality. Kids can. Kids very early on develop a sense of real and unreal. And I think kids are always itching to be imaginative and creative. So think about it. Obviously, you need to plan the adventure around your kid, what they're into, what they like. You might necessarily want to make it as violent or as scary or as adult as you would with your usual gaming group, obviously, but just try a dungeon delve sometimes. Have your kid go out in search of some dragon loot and see what happens. Thanks, guys. Happy gaming all.